welcome you to yet another session on KU Padasala. We are discussing film studies. We now delve into the fascinating realm of film and identity. Specifically, we will investigate the role of film in shaping national identity, the significance of national cinema, influence of Hollywood on global film landscapes, importance of world cinema, feminist film, post-colonial films, etc. Our cinematic experiences are often dominated by Hollywood, with its widespread influence evident in the funding and origin of the films readily available to audiences. Hollywood's global presence has been a constant throughout much of film history, raising questions about its impact on national identities and cultures worldwide. Despite Hollywood's global dominance, it's crucial to acknowledge that it wasn't always the predominant force. Many national cinemas, such as British film and non-English language films, have contributed significantly to the rich history of global cinema. Hollywood's rise parallels the ascent of America as a global power, sparking concerns about the erosion of cultural identities under its pervasive influence. The definition of national cinema is a subject of ongoing debate, encompassing factors such as funding and nationality, the director and production team's origin, casting choices, filming locations, and thematic content. Policies to protect national cinema have been implemented throughout history, reflecting evolving attitudes towards national identity and the cultural contribution of cinema. An early example is the Cinematography Films Act of 1927 in Britain, which aimed to safeguard the British film industry from American dominance. The Act set quotas for British films, defining them based on criteria such as nationality of the production team, shooting locations within the British Empire, and labor cost distribution. Defining a film as national can be complex, influenced by broader political and economic factors. Policies designed to nurture national cinema may be compromised by considerations such as international relations and trade agreements. The intricacies of these considerations often result in compromises, sometimes favoring foreign interests over the development of independent national film industries. The factors highlighted in the 1920s to distinguish a film as British illustrate the complexity of the national cinema issue. Legislation aimed at supporting a film industry must be specific about the criteria for a national film. These criteria guide the labeling and differentiation of films for marketing and academic study, providing insights into the complex relationship between cinema and national identity. The discussion of the significance of nationality in cinema has evolved within the academic study of film, mirroring broader theoretical concerns across disciplines. As we navigate this intricate landscape, it's essential to consider the dynamic interplay between cinema and identity, recognizing the multifaceted contributions of both Hollywood and national cinemas. Let's now try to understand the complexities surrounding the idea of national cinema and the challenges posed by the dominance of Hollywood. Before 1980s, the notion of national cinema was straightforward, a reflectionist perspective. This view posited that cinema mirrors the essence of a nation, capturing themes, characters, and landscapes that define its identity. An example is the post-war Ealing comedies, which were believed to embody the spirit of British defiance and community resilience after World War II. However, this reflectionist view, as described by academics like Stephen Croft, constructs the homogenizing fiction of nationalism, presenting generalized representations of national cultures. These representations, shaped by historical and political context, may oversimplify or even conceal aspects of a nation, creating mythical portrayals. During the 1980s and 90s, the certainties underlying national identity were questioned. The concept of nation-states as imagined communities gained prominence. This perspective suggests that national identity is constructed through shared images, stories, and ideas, fostering a sense of community and common ideology that may be more imagined than real. In the early decades of film history, the US was just one player among several, including the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Denmark. Silent film, being language independent, facilitated global distribution. Early films were freely copied across boundaries, exemplified by Lumiere Brothers movies made in France in 1895 and extensively copied globally. Contrary to the perception of the Hollywood's historical dominance, US was not a filmmaking powerhouse in the early years. However, after the World War I, Hollywood emerged as a dominant filmmaking industry, capitalizing on its production continuity during the war and having a near monopoly on the home market. The economic might of Hollywood allowed for bigger budgets, making American films cheaper to produce and more attractive to audiences worldwide. Competing national cinemas struggled to match Hollywood's budget, creating a dilemma: resist Hollywood or nurture a local film industry. Some nations emulate Hollywood's studio system and film form, but budget constraints persisted. Despite Hollywood's dominance by the mid-1950s, only 35% of the feature films were made in the US and the Western Europe. Countries like Japan, India, and Mexico thrived, producing films that resonated with local audience. Television had not established itself as extensively as in the West, creating a hunger for films featuring familiar music, stars, and culture. We now delve into the realms of post-colonialism in the context of film studies. These theoretical frameworks emerged in response to the complexities of cinema production in developing countries and the cultural impact of colonization. In the 1960s and 70s, Third World cinema emerged as a critical response to the dominance of Hollywood, popularly known as Third Cinema. The theorists of these movements advocated for an indigenous film industry in developing nations that would break away from Hollywood conventions. They urged the creation of films that rejected classical cinematic norms associated with American values. These filmmakers drew inspiration from cinematic movements like Italian neorealism and Soviet montage. Italian neorealism, with its emphasis on expressing social and political concerns through documentary realism, served as a model for capturing the experiences of the poor. The technical limitations of these films were seen as virtues given the lack of resources. Despite its initial promise, the theory faced criticism. Advocating a uniform approach for diverse national cinemas were considered flawed. The deliberate pursuit of an imperfect film style, focusing on the harsh realities, neglected the importance of spectatorial pleasure. It offered a more nuanced perspective on cinema produced by developing countries, recognizing the complexity of cultural identity in the post-colonial era. This theory engaged with a changing world order where ex-colonies sought to ascertain their national identities. At the heart of post-colonialism lies a concern with the cultural interaction between colonizing powers and colonized societies. Examining the traces left on the arts, it acknowledges the hybrid nature of cultural identity in a globalized world, emphasizing multiple identities and geographical displacements characteristic of the post-independence era. While post-colonialism opened new debates on nationalism and identity, it faced criticism. One notable critique was its failure to adequately engage with the political and economic dimensions, particularly the economic forces driving globalization. A film like Gurinder Chadha's Baji on the Beach in 1994 lends itself to a post-colonial reading. The narrative explores diverse issues of identity within the British Asian community, highlighting generational gaps, attitudes towards tradition, and impact of tourism. This film aligns with the concept of diasporic cinema in representing the cultural experiences of migrants. This shift in focus expands our understanding of identity, nationality, and the complexities of globalization within the world of cinema. The concept of transnational has become a dominant force in contemporary film studies, encompassing debates on identity, globalization, and the interconnectedness of cultures. This theoretical framework builds upon post-colonialism and third world theory, considering the impact of accelerating transnational flows of people, technology, finance, media image, and ideologies. As film producers increasingly target global audiences, concerns arise about the potential homogenization of film style and content. Hollywood, once criticized for cultural imperialism, now seek to embrace diversity. Examples include the production of films like Kung Fu Panda series and The Karate Kid in 2010 to appeal to the Chinese audience, recognizes China as a significant cinema market. The concept of national cinema is challenged by the growing trend of international co-productions. While these collaborations can enhance budgets and audience appeal, they also lead to a compromise in film specificity as the need to target multiple nationalities become paramount. Hollywood, in search for cost-effective practices, increasingly engages with cheaper overseas labor markets. Critics argue that while Hollywood remains a center of power, individual films often reflect transnational cultural and industrial practices. This challenges the notion that Hollywood simply perpetuates American culture and ideology, emphasizing the complexity of the filmmaking process. The focus on national cinema has limitations, overlooking local communities and the growing importance of the transnational. Filmmakers from within nation-states use film to gain visibility and express their identity, such as Native American filmmaking in the US or Welsh language cinema in the UK. The rise of co-productions and the popularity of world cinema contribute to what is described as borderless cinema. Even seemingly culturally specific cinemas are often influenced by Hollywood. For instance, Pedro Almodovar's films, while vividly representing Spanish life, borrows extensively from Hollywood melodrama. This illustrates the porous borders between national cinemas, highlighting the challenge of defining specific cultural identities in the face of cultural osmosis. Andrew Hickson argues that considering films in terms of their nation of origin remains useful as a method of classification in the complex debates about cinema. Recognizing national cinemas can also serve as means of resisting the market dominance of Hollywood, providing a platform for films that might otherwise be overlooked. Let's now try to understand Iranian cinema as a case study of national cinema. Consider the case of Iranian cinema, which has flourished despite a restrictive political environment. Directors like Abbas Kiarostami and Mohsen Maghmalbaf, part of the new wave of Iranian cinema, have received acclaim internationally. Iranian cinema, by exploring the socio-cultural context of modern-day Iran, challenges Western perceptions shaped by political agendas. In conclusion, the transnational turn in the film studies expands our horizons, encouraging a nuanced understanding of identity, nationality, and cultural exchange.